All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode. And my guest joining me today, you may remember her from that show, Real World Philadelphia. Sarah, how we doing?
Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm doing fine. I'm really grateful that you're coming on here because I know this is not something that you talk about every day, you know?
Yeah, no, I don't. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, was it a conscious effort to kind of like move away from that time of your life, or like, would you say like maybe organically happened?
Um, I think it was kind of a combination of the two. I don't have any regrets about doing the show. I still keep in touch with multiple people from my show and made some really great friends. I moved to New York afterwards when I was doing a lot of the appearances and met some amazing people. When I was in New York, obviously, like New York was a great place to be after the show because, there's a lot of famous people there. So like you aren't like really famous if you're on Real World. I
Yeah.
mean, I did get some attention from, people recognizing me, but it wasn't like overwhelming. And then I was in law school and, then I had to just really focus on studying and then becoming a lawyer and getting a job. And, that's just not something that you talk about in the professional realm. I mean, people knew about it, but I didn't like walk around talking about it. So it just kind of happened organically and I just went on with my life.
Did that conversation come up like in the sense of like maybe interfering with potential jobs when you would go to them, or like did it never really serve as a hindrance?
No, it didn't. No one cared. I mean, the people hiring me didn't watch the show. I mean, it wasn't like um, I had a summered. Actually, yeah, cool. No, I summered with them. I mean, I knew those guys really. It wasn't a big deal. It just wasn't. I didn't do anything on the show to like that would warrant me to not get a job. So
Yeah.
I think if anything, like some of the older, not old, but like older guys thought it was cool or something. But they hadn't watched it and they were just like, "Do you have the DVDs?" And like, I was like, "No, I did, but I didn't want, to
You
just."
didn't watch? You didn't watch yourself back, or were you one
I
of those?
did. I watched some of the episodes. I watched most of them. There were some that I would miss because back in the olden times, like DVR wasn't even really that popular, so it aired, and you had to be there. It was there was no on demand, and I traveled a lot, like when the show was airing, because I was doing a lot of appearances, college stuff, which actually helped me pay for law school, which
Oh
is
wow.
another perk. Yeah, the show doesn't pay a ton. That's a misconception. But back then, at least, I don't know. I know that the challenges and some of the reunion shows I think are kind of worthwhile. But yeah, it was, I don't even know. I just lost my train of thought. So sorry.
No, that's fine. That
I was
often happens.
actually working right before we got on this. That's my life. So
Yeah. How would you say the reception was, like, as far as like, when you leave this thing, there's gonna be like fans that are gonna be watching this, they're gonna formulate their opinions. People in your normal life that they're gonna like ask you like, hey, how was the show? And they might even tune in and like react to it. How would you say like you were met once you came off this thing, if you could remember?
I mean, I remember, of course. So back in 2004 is when my show came out. Things were really different. So I always felt like, and I still feel like to an extent, but not as much, that women and females would always get skewered more than men, and I mean for the wrong reasons, like things that wouldn't even be acceptable today. I'm not bitter about it. I knew exactly everything that came out of my mouth came out of my mouth. Like everyone's like, did they completely change everything? I'm like, not really. I mean, everything I said, I said. Everything I did. And I knew intellectually going into the show that, people were going to judge me. You know, it, there's just always going to be people who are going to have strong opinions, and you just have to do your best to just kind of like, and thankfully then, um, there wasn't as much social media presence, and you could really easily avoid message boards. I mean, if you really wanted to find some horrible stuff about yourself, you could. I mean, but there was this one guy, and I forget his name. He wrote for Entertainment Weekly, and every single week he would write review of our, like, the episode. Like, that was part of his job. And he hated me, like, just, but he said stuff that was so horrible that, like, if he said it today, like, he would have immediately been fired. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he made this comment because I had, during my interviews, not on the show, I had indicated that I had been sexually assaulted. And I didn't know they were going to air something from my interviews leading up my auditions in the show. And my mom didn't even know that that had happened to me. So when it aired on the show, one of the directors or producers reached out to me just to let me know it was going to be airing, because I didn't talk about it on the show. I just talked about it before the show.
Yeah.
And he essentially wrote something saying, like, how cliched is that? Like, another girl with daddy issues who's been raped. Like, so yeah, he, like, literally wrote something like that. And I remember after that, like, that was probably the most, that was the hardest, because I think I laid on, like, my couch for the next week, just completely just floored that someone could be so cruel. If someone did that today, like,
They'd be canceled. Like, that would be.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
But that was
But
acceptable.
for rightful reason, I mean.
Yeah. And I mean, listen, like, I was young. Everyone on our show, we were in this house with cameras on us all the time. And we were all talking about sex, like, constantly.
Yeah.
Because we weren't having sex, except the guys were. They figured out the loophole, and they had no shame about certain things. But, like, we weren't. So we were horny and we were young, and, like, we were talking about those things. And I was the girl with the fake boobs who liked to talk about sex. And I knew that I was going to be marketed that way. Like, so I wasn't, like, upset, but that upset me. Like, that, somebody making light of sexual assault, that to me was like, but besides that, everything else was just expected and normal. And I mean, it made me a stronger person, and I'm an attorney now. So I have to deal with a lot of, I'm exaggerating, actually. I get along with opposing counsel pretty well, but sometimes you got to deal with some pretty nasty people in my line of work. So I'm not really shocked anymore about when people are, pretty low.
Mm-hmm. That's, like, absurd to think about. Like, you said Entertainment Weekly, right? Like, nowadays, like, I would say, like, now, like, everybody's kind of, like, supposed to gear towards being, like, neutral and, like, like, just straight to the point, like, objective. Whereas, like, an article like that, oh my God, like, that's just so hard to believe that anything like that, like, was approved and put out in the year 2004.
It was a different time. I mean, it sounds crazy because it's like 2004, but I mean, it was a different time. I mean, this is the time when you would walk into a grocery store and see, like, close-up pictures of women's cellulite on their bodies, and just like, oh, look who's 3 pounds heavier or whatever. I mean, so it was what it was. But besides that, I mean, the show was a positive experience. I mean, I think it's just, yeah, I mean, that was the only negative downside, but that's reality,
Did you ever, like, talk to producers about any of that stuff, or did you kind of just take it on the chin?
What do you mean?
Like, did you, like, bring it to their attention, like, oh, this is being, like, said about me in, like, Entertainment Weekly, can you, like, take it up with them? Or
No. I mean, everyone has a right to free speech. I mean, that guy put it out there, that's on him, not me, right? Like, he has to live with the karma of saying something that's disgusting about somebody else and putting it in print. But we filmed the entire show, and then we were basically released back into the wild. One of the directors of the show, Laura, she was amazing. And she was actually, I think, a psychologist before she was a director. I don't know if anyone's ever talked about her before, but she's gone on to do a lot of other reality shows. I think she did that one that, like, won a lot of awards with people with Down syndrome. But she sat us down, like, one of our last weeks that we were there before we watched our first episode. And she said, listen, now you're going out into, like, the real world, not this world you've been living in for the past 4 months, which sounds kind of weird, but it was true. We weren't living in a real world. And she's like, and, there's message boards, there's people who are going to say things about you. And I just want you to know this. She gave this anecdote about one of the cast members who was on Road Rules, and she died. I think in a car accident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And she said, and people wrote on the message boards things like, I never liked her anyway. I'm glad she died.
Wow.
So Laura said to us, listen, this is like, if you're going to go on a message board, like, just know that there's these people who will say these things. There is no level to which they will not sink. And, you know, these are sad people. So my recommendation for you is stay off of them and, you know, just live your life. Don't seek out the negative. But sometimes it was impossible because, you know, I didn't even read the Entertainment Weekly thing. My sister did. And then she decided it would be a great idea to tell me because she was so mad about it, you know. I understand why she told me, but at the same time, it was just like, I didn't seek out things about me. Like, I didn't go on message boards and like see what people were saying because that's not healthy. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's crazy that like things that were said then, like 2004, like a sex positive outlook is something that was like really frowned upon, especially like maybe as like a woman saying it just because of a double standard that just naturally exists both in like life and reality TV to top it off. But then like now with like how society's evolved, it's like a sex positive outlook is like almost like things are the norm now.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny too because like everyone thinks that like MJ and I had a thing when we were on the show and we didn't. I mean, I think we kissed a couple times and that was
Yeah.
it. But I think I kissed Landon too. Like, no, I don't think that was a storyline. I don't know if that.
That was shown at the reunion, I think, is like the like things you didn't see moment, I think.
Okay. I
Yeah.
don't even remember what I said, but yeah, I mean, it was just, you know, and I understand that. You know, you want to have fun TV, you have innuendo, you have, you know, what's going on. I got it. I was never mad about any of the ways that they put the show together. I mean, maybe I wasn't mad at the producers for playing something that I said in an audition because I said in an audition it was filmed.
Mhm.
I was a little bit miffed about it just because it was unexpected, but I was warned. So, I mean, it is what it is. You sit down in front of a camera and you say something and you sign some papers. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a lawyer. You sign a contract. It is what it is. So.
Was the land? I'm not the land. Was the you and MJ thing? Were you guys like playing that up for like the storyline at all, or was it just like because I could have sworn at the reunion you guys were saying something about, like the cameras were like following you, so you guys were trying to like kind of mess with them or something like that.
I mean, maybe we said that back then. Maybe MJ said it. I don't know. The funny thing about MJ is that I actually talked to MJ before the show even started.
Mhm.
I don't know if we talked about that on the reunion special, which was so
Oh,
long
I
ago.
didn't know that actually.
Yeah, so he went to Vanderbilt. I went to Emory, and we had some mutual friends. And we kind of found out that we'd made the show, and somebody I knew was like, "Oh, I know someone who made it on the show too." So we got each other's cell phone numbers and we talked a few times. But we promised we were going to pretend like we didn't know one another when we walked into the house.
Well,
So
you guys did a great
there was
job
a
at
little
that.
bit of flirting like before the show, and like I thought he was an attractive guy, but like I mean, after a week or two of living in a house with somebody, it's unless it's like love at first sight, it's really not. You're not really you're not
Yeah.
really attracted to those people anymore. So
So the producers had no clue that you guys knew each other then, right?
no,
That
they
is
didn't.
wild. You guys did such a good job then, because I would have not expected that you guys knew each other beforehand. That's crazy.
I actually kept a lot of secrets from them. So like the guy Tracy, who I think was one of the top producers of the show, he lived in a town in Maine, and I'm not going to say the name of the town. I don't know if he still lives there, but it's a really small town where my grandmother and my grandfather grew up. And my old relatives, when they found out I was going to be on the show, were like, "Oh, we know a guy that was on the show." And they kept saying Tracy, and I'm like, I don't think he was on the show. I think he's like actually like one of the producers of the show, you know?
Hmm.
And I didn't say a word about it, like just didn't throughout the whole audition process because I just didn't want I didn't want him to be weirded out because he lives in this really small town in Maine, and like, you know, for him to reconsider me for the show because of that. So, but then when I was on the show, I was just like, yeah, so by the way, like, you know, my entire like my grandma's side of the family, like you live in their town, like
So this would have been like while you're already pretty much guaranteed the spot then?
when I was on it, like when I was
When
in
you
the house.
Oh,
Oh
wow.
yeah, yeah.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
So you did get noticed a lot though, like by people, like once the show initially first rolled out.
Yeah, I mean,
What would
yeah.
be like the initial thing, like the first thing if somebody sees you, like maybe at a local supermarket or a mall, like what's the first thing someone says to you?
I mean, so long ago. So, I mean, just some people would come up to you and like say something. Some people would just, and then they'd ask, oh, the question is, how was it to be on the show? Like, what was it like? You know, and or they have comments about other people on the show if they'd seen more episodes. You know, a lot of people like to come up to me and tell me how much they didn't like Mel, and I'm like, well, she's actually like one of my really good friends, and I still adore her. You know, we may have had a few tiffs and kind of gotten off on the wrong foot, but like she ended up being one of my favorite people in the whole house. Um, you know, so it just like, you know, people just having their views of what the characters were. And some people would come up to me because I was in Philly and I was eating a lot of Philly cheesesteaks and a lot of late night things. So I gained some weight on the show and people were very commenting on that all the time too. And so when they would meet me and they'd be like, oh, you're thin. I didn't think you were thin.
Wow.
This was back in 2004 too.
Yeah.
So people would comment on my body and how, oh, you're really tiny. Like, I thought you were like a big girl, and I'm like, yeah.
Wow.
I don't know if you'd walk up to any other stranger and say something like that, but I mean, I know they didn't mean it offensively, um, you know.
That
So
was like a really normal thing though at the time. Like I know like a lot of the girls from the Paris season, 2 seasons before you
yeah.
were talking about it on here, how like they got like really badly like body shamed like from their
Mhm.
season, and they still to this day because of that experience have like carried like kind of like post show trauma due to it. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah,
supposed.
I mean, I had an eating disorder, like, and it was talked
Yeah.
about in the show. So for me, yeah, it did have an impact, and it did was something I had to work through, especially when you know it's on a large scale like that. But you know, I'm good now, so
Well, inquiring minds would like to know, are Philly cheesesteaks all they're cracked out to be, or
well, it depends. So like, it depends if you like the whole like cheese whiz thing. Like,
yeah.
I mean, they're
Well,
good. I mean, they're really good when you're drunk. Like,
I
if I
think
was
anything's
sober,
good when you're drunk
if
though.
I was sober, I don't know if I would think that they were like the best thing in the world. Like we went to like what was it? Pat and Gino's is like they're like across from each
Yeah, yeah.
other. I don't know which one's better. I really don't. They were like pretty much all the same to me. And I'm not trying to offend anyone in Philly. I just don't remember which one was better. It was a very long time ago. So I don't have a Pat or Gino like affiliation.
Well, Philly didn't take a, or Philly rather chose to offend you guys from what it seemed like, because it seemed like they gave you guys a really hard time about like filming there. That was like the thing of the norm, right? Because I think when I had MJ on, he said that like they would, when you guys were going to like the Starbucks that I think was across the street from you guys, like all the Philly people would like gather around there and like give you guys hard times or something like that.
They did. I mean, but it's Philly, right? Like,
It's
I don't
expected.
know. I kind of have like a respect for like ornery people a little bit. I mean, my whole family's from the Northeast. You know, MJ's Southern, so he's got that really Southern mentality. And listen, I was born in Florida, so it's kind of like I have that mix of the North and the South. But
Yeah.
um, I mean, it's Philly. They threw like what did they throw at Santa Claus at one game? Like, weren't they like throwing stuff at them?
Snowballs. Or
Yeah, like, but it's kind of funny, right? And I mean, listen, there were places like I wanted to go, like certain bars I would go to if like I wasn't on the show, and I wouldn't go because I didn't want to bring the circus with me, you know? So there it's I mean, I'm not saying it's right to like some of the guys really did get in some fights and like some people threw punches at them trying to get attention, and that's really messed up. Like I think the guys kind of got it harder in that sense, right? Like they
Yeah,
were
they did.
more targeted. Because I mean, even if you're a jerk, like you're not going to go after young women.
Hmm.
I mean, and I don't remember even having any women try to start fights with me or anything like that. Um, but I'm not a very like argumentative, confrontational person anyway. Like I'm not that girl who gets up in people's faces and yells and screams. So um, I don't know. I know that I remember there was this one fight. We were in this club, and Landon, I think he fell through a table, and it was glass, and
Yeah. You got like
um,
over it or something. Yeah.
I'll never forget because the song that girl is poison, that
Oh yeah.
girl is
Yeah.
that was playing, and I don't know why. I'll just never forget that song was what was playing when that all went down. I don't. It's just a random memory, but
I mean, it's normal. There's certain situations in your lifetime where like something like so minuscule like will be
Mhm.
happening, like a song like in the background, and like you'll just immediately associate that with like a situation that happened. That's normal.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I like Philly. I've been back a couple times. The food is phenomenal there, like just so good. Um, I mean, Philly has a little chip on its shoulder, and I kind of like that about it.
Yeah.
And I made some really good friends there. Met some really good people. Um, I really don't think, I was a little, this is going to sound bad, but, I think I don't know if it was the season before us or the season after us. I don't know when Sydney happened. I think it was after us.
It was after you guys. Like I
Yeah,
think it
and
was
I remember being a little bit miffed about that, because there was Paris, and like, I think we were after Paris. Wait, I don't even
you
know.
got it, it went Paris, San Diego, you guys.
Okay, yes. Yeah,
Mhm.
and I think I just was like, we were like, oh, where's it going to be? And then they're like, Philly. And we're like, oh.
And then after you guys was Austin.
Yeah, yeah, and I actually went down to do the Austin like preview show.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that I saw that house and everything. It was cool. So
You guys had a weird house, didn't you guys? I think it was like a converted bank or something, I heard.
yeah, it was. I don't want to say it was the Siemens Bank or something, because that we thought that was funny. The
Yeah.
Siemens, it was SEAM, not whatever. But I'm 5. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
um, Yeah, it was cool actually. I mean, it was like very open planned. There was 2 stories. There was like this huge atrium. I think there was a tree in the middle of it.
Hmm.
Kitchen, but I mean, it was like, and then there was like the basement where we would do the confessionals. It was like an old bank vault. I think it became like an art studio because it was me, Landon, Karamo, and Mel. We were back there a few years later, and we actually were allowed in. And we took some cool pictures in there, but they had changed it, and it was like an art gallery or an event. I don't even know.
Oh,
I
wow.
don't know what it is now. Last time I was there for a wedding in 2015, 2016, and I think I took some pictures in front of the house. Um, and like it was funny because there was a tour bus driving by, and they said something about, this is where the real world was filmed, and
Memories start to flood back being there?
um, yeah, I mean, just the show itself, like filming it is really fun. I don't know how it was in later years, but like you don't have a cell phone. Um, Actually, I snuck a cell phone.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
Wow. Were like you like using it?
Uh-huh. Oh yeah.
They never caught you.
No. I would go to the gym and charge it there. The reason I did it is because Shavonda was always on the phone with her boyfriend or
Yeah.
ex-boyfriend, or I mean, she's
They're
married
still
to
together, I'm pretty
they're
sure.
married and they
They're
have
married,
kids and
yeah.
they're adorable. But
Yeah.
like she was always on the phone with him, like fighting or doing whatever. Like, and so it was just like you couldn't even get a call in,
Hmm.
like to anybody. So I wasn't like having any sort of like crazy conversations. I was just like calling my friends or like my parents, and I would just like walk to the gym, I'd charge it there, and I'd hide it. Um,
You would think with all the cameras they have, anybody would catch that.
I'm sneaky. So,
Well,
yeah,
I want to hear about how you got on this show originally. I always ask my guests their
yeah,
casting stories, is what I call them. Could you
yeah.
maybe walk me through, I guess maybe like what you were up to like prior to like Real World and what led you to that audition and then the audition process itself?
Yeah. So, and this isn't really, this kind of like just start at the very beginning. I was
Okay.
11 years old when the first Real World came out, Real World New York. And my
Well,
sister and I, our parents were not strict about what we watched. We were obsessed with that show. I mean, like, I was just like, I fell in love with these people because they were having so much fun. It was silly. It was different. It was like, And I said to my sister at 11 years old, I said, I'm going to be on that show. And she's like, no, you're not, because we're sisters and we fight. And I was like, yeah, I am. And then, you know, life went on, and I didn't audition for any shows between then and Philly, but I was in college. I was done. I graduated. I was clerking at a law firm in Atlanta, and I saw that there was going to be open auditions in a club that was literally across the street from where I worked. It was on the weekend, but it was still like right across the street. I don't know if I saw a flyer or what. So I decided to go. And I went to the open audition, and they brought us in like with a group of like maybe 10 people, asked a couple questions, kind of like let people around the room talk. And then they pulled me aside and they were just like, hey, can you fill out this application? Like the next day I went to a hotel. I think I talked to them for like 3 hours. And then it was just kind of like, I don't know how many, and maybe there was like 3 or 4. I flew out to LA for the semifinals, did my interview there, and then I got the show. So it was a fun process. I was at that age of 22 where I delusionally like just was like, I'm gonna be on the show. Like I felt like it was this like predestined thing that it was just gonna happen, because I told my sister when I was 11 I was gonna do it, and she said no, and then, you know, I was gonna prove her wrong. So I got it. I mean, I wish I had that kind of like confidence that I had back then, in terms of just like, yeah, I'm gonna make it out of tens of thousands of people on this TV show. Like today I would be like, no, I don't even want to. I don't even have
Show up. Yeah.
So
you knew like pretty much like very early into it then, like you were like, all right, you know, I think I'm getting on this thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
I studied for it.
Did you? Like, what do you mean by that?
So there was these books, like they were like these books on like, there was like the Real World Vegas book, and it was like this little book with like pictures of the cast and little stories and little things about the, and then in the back they had everybody's application. And then they also had like things from directors being like what they look for in people. So this is just me, because I'm a nerd. Like I study a ton. I read a lot. You know, I know I came off as like the fun party girl, but like I'm really at the heart of things, just
deceptively smart.
an introverted nerd kind of person, and I studied for it. I when I went into the room, I was like, I'm not going to be the loudest person in this room, and I'm not going to like butt in, and I'm just going to, when I say something, it's going to be like what I feel, and it's just going to be to the point. And like that's what the director said they looked for. They just looked for somebody, like, because there was people in there being like, I was on Jeopardy once, and like just saying ridiculous things that were just to get attention. And I was like, and I told them that once when we were like doing one of our like interviews when we were in the show, and they're like, you studied to be on the show? I'm like, yeah, study for everything, man. So
You find the loophole for everything on this thing.
I mean, listen, I didn't get on the show because I studied for it, right? I mean,
yeah, they found something authentic in you that they wanted to put on the show. But,
yeah.
You know, you had a pretty decent idea as to, like, how to deliver that authenticity, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure your casting special, this has been well documented by some fans they wanted me to talk about. You said that when you hit the screen, everybody's going to forget about Trishelle from Vegas.
I knew this question was coming. That was just like, okay, first of all, I was pre-gaming for a Maroon 5 concert. Maroon 5, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they've been around for a long time. And I had my friend like filming me, because I was like, oh, because we were supposed to make these like home videos after we'd auditioned and done a few interviews. And I just said it. I mean, I was just being a little cocky 22-year-old.
Did you get to meet Trishelle?
I've met her a couple times.
Did you guys ever talk about that?
No.
Did she? Oh, okay.
I don't. Trishelle's just somebody that I don't really know. I don't.
But you just knew like of her, I guess.
Yeah, listen. Like, there's a lot of people like I've met and known from other casts. My roommate in New York, Jules, she's really good friends with Rachel.
Robinson?
Yeah, really
Oh,
good
she's
friends
been
with
on here.
her. And even back when her and Dee were dating, she also, my friend Jules was with Diem. Um,
Oh wow.
when Diem passed away, I actually saw Diem, like, I'm not kidding you, like 3 days before she passed. So I've, I've met a lot of the people on the shows, you know, just living in New York, there'd be people in town. But I actually, it's so funny. I met more people from the show through my friend Jules, because she went to college with, what's his name? He's, I'm drawing such a blank, but she went to college with somebody who's on Road Rules. And I actually met her through him. Um, and then like through her, I was like meeting all these, like he knew all these people. And then it was just like kind of, I mean, that's how New York is though. If
Yeah.
you live in LA, LA is like the biggest place where everybody is from real world, right? Everyone
Yeah.
works at the
Everybody's like,
cattle. Is
yeah,
it?
everyone's doing the 15 minutes over in LA.
Yeah.
Why, when I heard you say New York, not surprised, but from like the usual typical answer, everyone's like, yeah, I went straight to LA. It's never you. It's usually like LA first and then New York second. But
Well, I didn't want to go to LA because I didn't want to be an actress or do anything in the entertainment industry. I
mhm.
just wanted to be in New York. It was,
Yeah,
I just wanted to write out the appearances and save some money and go to law school. But yeah, no, I've met Trishelle a few times. I don't know her. I know she was I don't even want to put words in her mouth. I think she was just a little annoyed about it, but whatever. I mean, that's just TV, you
yeah.
know.
Really?
I mean, listen, Trishelle's much more famous than me. Like, she's like, Trishelle, like on Real World Vegas, she's iconic, right?
They changed the direction in the show that season. I believe. I think that Vegas was the season where the show took a different direction. I think the
Agreed.
first like 11 seasons, like from like the original New York to Chicago, was kind of
Hmm.
like just people being documented, like talking and just living and pretty much just breathing at that point,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And then like Vegas is pretty much what I would consider Jersey Shore to be in like what they took the model that Vegas established and then turned it into their own kind of Italian version
Hmm.
of it. So,
I agree. I agree. I
yeah.
think that well, and it's Vegas, right? Like, I think they wanted a really sexy cast. And listen, Trishelle's a beautiful woman. Like,
Mhm.
she's beautiful. She still is. I think I've seen pictures of her.
Yeah,
So
she's been on this show. Like,
I have no hate for Trishelle. I was a 22-year-old who was just being silly and full of herself because she had a few
no,
drinks.
I think it's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, if I was in Trishelle's shoes, I would laugh, but I mean, we're all cut from different cloth, so.
Yeah, listen, I was on I don't know where I was looking at something on Instagram the other day, but I think it was really old. And she had made some comments about something that she wouldn't, I don't even know. It was kind of mean, but I was just like, whatever.
About you or just something
No,
else?
no, 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 not about me, about
Oh,
other people on their challenges. I think she didn't get along with one of the producers there, or there was some backstory on that, and I don't know, but I literally, like, this is just me, like, on a like late night Instagram deep dive of
yeah.
like what's going on with these people that I sometimes, hear about.
Does that happen often? Like, I mean, you live a rather private life away from the show, obviously, like you said. But like when you're on social media, scrolling, does it happen often where like real world or like MTV related stuff will like be in your crosshairs?
Well, yeah, because I follow MJ, and
Toronto.
all the challenge stuff has been happening. Um, there's some other people too that I follow because I actually know them. And yeah, and obviously, Karamo's obviously been so successful,
Yeah.
and I am so proud of him. I tell you, like, I'm not surprised at all about his success. I remember he told me when we were in the house, he's like, one day I'm going to be in People's 50 Most Beautiful People. Like, not because he's like thought he was the most, but just because he like knew he was going to be something, right?
Hmm.
Like, so he wanted to be something that was like influential and like, you know, out there and in the public eye. And like, he worked his butt off to get where he was. He had a lot of jobs between, the Queer Eye thing where he was just really hustling, on top of raising two kids that he
Yeah.
didn't even know he had, until like they were like teenagers, so that guy, I mean, Karamo and I actually talk, not on the phone a lot, but we talk, like, Instagram chat and text, and you know just kind of have conversations here and there about things, and I'm just so proud of him. I'm just,
Did you see that him and MJ like ran into each other at the airport recently?
yeah. So,
What
because
are the odds
they're
of
my
that?
friends on Instagram, so I saw
Yeah,
that. We had a group chat, actually. It was a few months ago. It was me, Karamo, Landon. No, Landon wasn't. Landon doesn't really go on social media a lot.
private guy. He doesn't
Yeah,
go on social media at all.
yes, he has like 2 accounts, and I don't think he.
He uses them.
Anyway, it was okay. So it's me, Shavonda, Karamo, and MJ and Mel. So it's 5 of us, and we
Mhm.
were all sending each other voice messages, like a voice, like, where, like, you can, instead of typing, you're just sending voice messages, and it was just so fun. And then we all started just end up talking, and there was some chats about the whole, like, reunion stuff.
Homecoming.
Yeah, the shows they're doing.
The Real World Homecoming.
Yeah, and we were
Yeah.
talking about that, and because they like skipped a few, because I think that you have to have everybody.
All 7, yeah.
Yeah. So
They it went the first 2 seasons that they did, and they went from 2 and then straight to 9 for the 3rd season 9.
Mhm.
So
I think it's really, really hard to get everybody on board. And I think, honestly, I do think the reason we wouldn't is probably because of Karamo. I think that, with his new show, um, my thoughts on it, and I don't know this, I mean, and I've never asked him, because I wouldn't, I mean, he's got the Karamo show, he took over from Maury, essentially, and, like, my thing is I don't think he could take off to do it. I don't, with his schedule.
I mean, allegedly, MJ said that when they met up at the airport, that Karamo said, like, "Oh, I really hope that we get our homecoming."
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. I just didn't want to, like, I didn't want to ask Karamo about it, because I didn't want to be like, make him uncomfortable and make him think I was like, because I would do it.
you would.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Well, that's
Oh,
a fat check, I heard.
that's, I mean,
I mean,
I've already told, like, some people at work, like, I mean, I'm a partner at my law firm.
mhm.
So I'm like partner, like real partner. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I could take a 2-week vacation. I mean, it would be I do litigation, so it would be, I don't know if they'd let me have my computer on there. They probably wouldn't, because they'd be like, you got to be on the show. You can't be, like, checking your email, like,
Yeah.
all stressed out. But
Me being the devil's advocate here, I mean, you mentioned Karamo. I think the real potential, like, wild card and all this, potentially be Landon.
yeah,
I mean,
but the money, though, I mean,
that's the thing. Like,
it's hard.
I
I
think
mean,
that's
I
like,
heard about what it is, and, like, I mean, it's not like crazy, but it's enough for you to go, oh, I mean,
you could be a
like,
fly on the wall for 2 weeks if you
yeah,
really
just
wanted.
yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm not going to go on there talking about politics or anything crazy like that. Like, I have clients. Like, I mean, I'll talk about things, but I'm not going to, like, you have to be
Mm.
careful.
Do any of you guys know, like, what Willie's up to these days, or like where he is?
Mm-mm, no,
Really?
no. Willie, and I actually, when I was in New York, I hung out with Willie a lot, in those 2 years that I was there. And there was, like, a situation that happened after I left New York with my roommate, the one I was telling you about, Jules,
Hmm.
who, he was really close with her too. And some unfortunate things happened, and he kind of just fell off the face of the earth, because he allegedly did some things that, weren't cool. So, I mean, I'm really still good friends with Jules, and her girlfriend Christy, who, was involved in the entire situation. And there was some other people too who knew him, like Ryan Kehoe, and,
Yeah.
I mean, I hope he's well. But yeah, I mean, I didn't really have any interest in being his friend anymore. after certain things that occurred in New York.
Well, we could only, leave it at that at that point.
Yeah, I mean, no, that's it.
Yeah.
I don't want to say anything else, but like,
Yeah.
I hope he's okay. If he was on the show, it'd be good to see him, but it's really no one knows. I mean, that's what we were kind of talking about too. I mean, we were all last time he was spotted was Puerto Rico.
And how recent would that be?
After the hurricane, so 2017.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then I think someone told me they were on. Oh, okay. So I don't know if you watched my season. Have you?
Yeah.
Okay. So the guy that how we went to a gay pride parade and we met like all these guys and we would hang out with them all the time. And there was this one guy named Diana. Well, his real name's Jason. So him and I are really close. He actually just moved to where I live, Tampa, and bought a house here with his partner. And he said he was on the subway a year or so ago and was sitting right across from Willie.
In New York?
And Willie like wouldn't acknowledge him.
Did he know like that it was him?
Yes, they were friends. He stayed friends with Willie after I was friends with Willie. Like it was I shouldn't even, I feel bad talking about it, but I mean, the whole situation is bizarre. I mean,
something just must have gone like awry there. I don't know. I mean, I can't speculate, but
I mean, it was just sad. I really did care for him a lot, and but he hurt a lot of people that I am still close with. So, yeah, you're right. I think it would be very hard. He has a twin brother though.
Oh, then maybe they could come get him.
I know we were kind of joking about that too, but I mean, listen, it was a long time. This was all this stuff that went down was like a decade ago. People change, people go through rough times. People,
I mean, the kind of like producer mind part of me like would be like, this would be a perfect thing to tap into like on the show. But
I know. My roommate Jules says she would be driving to Philly. she's like, yeah, because she's the one that was in Puerto Rico with her girlfriend and like ran into one of Willie's exes and was like, hey, like they're like, have you heard from Willie? And they're like, oh, Willie's staying with us here in Puerto Rico. And they're like, what? So it was just, yeah, that was that. And then my friend, Jason, Diana, who last spotted him. So that was the last Willie sighting that we know of.
One could only speculate, but
I know.
Yeah. I think another burning question on the minds of a lot of people, though, and I wonder this myself, too, because I think anybody that could watch the Real World Philadelphia season, you've got 7 roommates, everybody's getting their character development, but you're very easily able to pinpoint, like, this person's got a main character archetype, and I think that you fall under that category on Real World Philly. So this thus causes the question here, why in God's name did we not get Sarah on at least one challenge?
I was asked to do 2. I said no. I don't remember why I said no. I think afterwards, after the show and having some of the stuff that happened was a little bit, I don't want to say traumatizing, but it made me draw inward a lot, especially doing all the tours to the bars.
Mm-hmm.
It was exhausting, and I just think I felt like I had given enough of myself, that I didn't want to, I just didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't want to be on TV anymore. I like I said, don't regret the experience. Like, it was great. I deeply love, some of my friends that I made on that show. But I just think it was kind of like, I kind of learned a lesson, like, be careful how much attention you ask for. And I'm also just like, it's like, I'm always myself. and that can get you in trouble, right? And I did get a lot of scrutiny after the show, just for sake, like you said, of being sex positive or whatever, or and I just needed to move forward with my life and you know become a attorney, which I'm well into now. And
Hmm. Yeah, it's like I always say this. It's like when you come off your original show of Real World, it's always like a shit or get off the pot. It's like you either kind of like if you continue to do challenges, it's you're like pigeonholed into this, and that's like what you're gonna like continue to do, and like you don't really like leave it. You know what I mean? Or you can go in the route of like just all right, this was nice, this was cool. I could talk about this in 15 years when I'm like just randomly telling stories, but I live my life. It's like
yeah,
one of the two. It's like you
yeah,
pigeonhole yourself and continue to stay in the reality stuff, or cool story to tell in 15 years while I'm just normally living a work life, you know what I mean? So,
yeah. I mean, it's crazy to me sometimes that I even did it, like, because my life is so different. But I got to do a lot of really exciting stuff. I mean, living in New York and going out, and I don't know. I don't regret it. I don't.
you still went to like the awards though, right? Like the
Mhm. Oh yeah, yeah,
real
yeah. That
passion
was
with
when I was in
May.
law school, actually. I think I flew out there. Um, I don't know if you watch any of the shows on Bravo. Summer House.
Yeah.
So I'm Lindsay, um, and I knew each other at UF. And in fact, we actually lived together for a little bit that summer. But I think when I was out in LA for that, I met with her. And yeah, it's just funny to see her now because she's like Miss Reality Television, and she's like, I always told her when we were friends, I was like, you would have killed it on Real World. Um, and I think she had considered auditioning for it because I was still going at that time. But I mean, she's obviously made the better choice with Summer House because I think it's a lot more for her PR and everything like that. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I do want to ask though, kind of about yours and Melanie's dynamic because it was kind of like an interesting one. It was like, we kind of saw you guys like you were close, but then like there would be like a rift, and then there was like a little bit of a spat over an $150 pair of jeans. How would you like characterize that? Like, I mean, you obviously you're close, and you understand her like maybe now, but like, well, how would you maybe characterize like back then's like type of yin and yang type of back and forth dynamic you guys had?
So yeah, because that argument in Fiji, um, it's funny because I think I saw like a clip of that and I sent it to her and we were just like laughing hard about it. Um, I was like, duh, or something like that. I was just like so mad. I was like, really makes me mad or something. I was like, whoa, drama, Sarah. No, when we first met, I didn't like her that much, and I don't think she liked me that much. I think we were very different people, um, very different backgrounds, and I mean, I don't. But like, she even said to me afterwards, she's like, God, I was so judgmental. Like, I was such a judgmental person. Like, she even said, like, she like apologized to me. I'm like, I don't care, because we became really close.
Yeah.
Um, it was almost kind of like sisters. Because my sister and I are very different people, but I still love her to death. And Mel is such a, like, that's the thing about her, is like, she actually is one of the most fun loving, like, cool, chill people you'll ever meet. Like, I saw her in 2019. I went out and visited her. I was out for a birthday party in Napa, and she's in Sonoma now with her husband and her little baby Pearl, who's just the cutest freaking kid in the world. And I don't know, she's just got a good soul. And I know like it seems like that, but that was just kind of like maybe a couple arguments that we had. But really, besides that, I think we learned a lot from each other. And she's just a good-hearted person, and it really wasn't as bad as people thought. We had a lot of fun on the show. Like, most of the time we were laughing and joking, and like we were always joking about how it wasn't going to be a very good season because we weren't really fighting that much. And Like we did this like 80s prom,
They didn't.
which I guess they,
I don't think they showed that, right?
no, no, and it was so awesome. Like Karamo won Homecoming King, and my friend Jason, who's AKA Diana, he was prom queen, and out like we were just always coming up with fun things and joking and laughing, and like we were like obsessed with the crew, which we had got talked to about. We're like, you're not allowed to talk about the crew members, you're not allowed to have crushes on the crew members. I mean, that happens in different seasons,
Yeah.
but we were just kind of like, it was like camp, you know. We're just these like 7 kids just like goofing around, and you know, I got mad at everyone because they were just dirty, and I was like the one cleaning up the house all the time, you know. And
Yeah, you
whenever,
definitely took on a mother role on that.
yeah, I
Yeah.
was so happy when the scabies came around. I said that, I was like, now everyone has to clean, like, because it was disgusting. You have no idea how gross that house was at times. It was disgusting. Like, it was so gross. That's why everything's so colorful, because they don't want people seeing the mess. It's gross.
One one thing I joked about too with MJ is like it felt like there was a camera everywhere in that
Oh yeah.
house.
Oh yeah.
Every, like on
Dude,
other
I wear
seasons.
earplugs to this day, because at night there's these cameras, these night vision cameras, and you would be like, you'd hear them like that. And so like I wear earplugs at night every night now, because I had to for 4 months. Not just because of the cameras, but because sometimes people were like still partying and screaming and yelling and whatever, and I was just like tired. And not that I didn't party too, I did, but like there were nights where we had to get up early the next morning and build this playground, and there was like screaming and throwing Campbell's soup across the room. I mean, I think that really happened one night. I think Landon like literally threw like tomato soup because he was drunk, like, and like I just heard screaming, and I'm like, what the hell, people? So
Yeah, I mean, good for him because he took like a different turn once like that show ended, like because like he didn't like how the show like or how he portrayed himself on the show with like drinking and stuff, and he took
yeah,
like much different kind of like turn to kind of get himself better.
yeah, I think he's too hard on himself.
He is.
I mean, Landon's a good guy, and I mean, I think he was hard on himself. I think he probably views it in a way that's much more severe than it really was. Um, a lot of us, like, that's the thing that's sad is like, yeah, Landon did get very drunk sometimes, right? And sometimes it was out of control. But there was nights where I'd fall asleep in front of the toilet. They never filmed me falling asleep in front of the toilet, like, because that wasn't my role. Like, they didn't care. I
Yeah.
literally remember waking up next to a toilet one day, and there was a camera guy sitting on the bench, and I just got up and walked to my bed. He didn't film it.
Oh.
So, you know.
Well, that's the one time where the girl does benefit on the show, huh?
I mean, I'm sure if there was I mean, I'm sure there's been seasons where there's been girls that have drank too much or whatever, but we were right out of college. It's like just like college kids.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I thank you again for taking the time to do this. I know you don't really speak about this much often anymore, but I was
No, it was
pleased when
fun.
I was pleased when you agreed, and I was even more pleased with how this turned out. So maybe it was fun to hop down the rabbit hole for an hour or so.
It was. It was. It's fun. I mean, who doesn't like talking about themselves, right? That's
I
why
mean,
I did the
anybody
show.
who
That's
says
why I
they
did the
don't,
show in the first place, and I rarely get to do it anymore. So, um, you know.
well, who knows? We may see you in a homecoming in sometime. I mean, we don't know for sure if it'll come to fruition, but from what it seems like, it's on the table.
I'm very happy to hear that you have more intel than me about the.
Listen, all this news just comes like I'm just an innocent bystander, and this just comes flying in. So,
Well, I mean, yeah, but you're talking. I mean, like I said, I could have directly asked Chromo the question, but like I didn't want him to think like I had ulterior motives, and
yeah, that makes sense. So that's really actually I actually kind of commend you for that because some people kind of may have ulterior motives, but like you actually thinking about like how someone else might perceive something is like pretty big, in my opinion. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
All right,
Well,
Mike. Well, thank you so much, for reaching out and taking that chance when I've been so private all these years. But
Yeah, I'm sure that people will love this. So thank you again.
all right, thanks, Mike.